A vast marble dome opens onto the black of deep space. Warships drift outside it, slow, silent, like sleeping animals that know exactly where their teeth are. The camera glides down through the dome, past 700 nobles in silk and silver, past the watching statues, past a column of bone-white quartz, and stops on her. A young woman alone at the center of the chamber, platinum hair like moonlight down to her waist, skin the color of the pearl, sapphire eyes that have learned not to flinch. She is asking a question. She has asked it 17 times before. Across the floor, a man lowers his head, steps back, the 17th. Then the camera lifts, crosses the chamber, finds something nobody else in the room has noticed. A human, the only one. He is watching her hands. His own hands are trembling. And in a small dim office 2 chambers away, a thin man in a gray robe smiles. Part 1. The marble dome opened onto the black of deep space. Not a sky, the actual dark. And drifting out beyond the glass sat 7 Imperial warships. Slow, silent, patient. Like sleeping animals that knew exactly where their teeth were. Inside the dome, 700 nobles in silk and silver. Every one of them holding their breath. Every one of them pretending not to. And at the center of it all, alone, her, Lady Aurelia Nyx, 25 years old, standing on a pale marble dais under a single column of light. Her hair was the first thing you noticed. Long, down to her waist. The color of moonlight poured into a glass and then poured again. Platinum, almost white, almost gold, depending on which way she turned her head. Her skin was porcelain, not pale in a sickly way, pale in the way old paintings are pale, the way a pearl is pale. Her eyes were sapphire, not blue, sapphire, the kind of blue that had weight, the kind of blue that had memory. She was by any measure any human diplomat had ever recorded one of the most beautiful young women in 3-star systems. And she was completely alone. She had asked a question. She had asked it 17 times before. Across the marble floor stood a tall noble in silver robes, jaw like a sculpted stone, cheekbones sharp enough to cut ribbon. He was by his own species standards considered handsome. He was also sweating. Aurelia's voice when it came was soft, a chime, but it carried. It carried the way a small, clean bell carries across water. You understand, she said, that if you accept this bond, you could die. Silence. The kind of silence that lives inside cathedrals. The tall noble lowered his head. I cannot, he said, accept the risk. Aurelia did not move. The faint light beneath her temples pulsed once, a slow underwater blue, then dimmed. She inclined her head, barely, just enough. Your caution, she said, is understandable. And then she said nothing else, because there was nothing else, because there had been nothing else. 17 times. At the far edge of the chamber, near a column of bone-white quartz, a man stood watching. His name was Hollis Marek, 30 years old, junior diplomatic officer, Earth Alliance credentials, the only human in the room. The boots they had given him were trying to murder his feet. The collar itched. The sleeves were tight. None of that mattered, because Hollis Marek was not looking at the warships. He was not looking at the throne. He was not looking at the tall noble who had just refused the most beautiful woman in 3-star systems. He was looking at her hands, specifically, the left one, which was clenched, behind her back. So small a movement that nobody else in 700 nobles seemed to notice. But he noticed, because he had seen that clench before. He had seen it in a hospital in Portland, 4 years ago, on a woman with a thin blue scarf tied around her head. Alain, his wife, his dead wife, his 4 years gone wife, and before his sensible junior diplomatic training could reach up and slap a hand over his mouth, before his ambassador 20 feet away could sense the disaster coming, before Hollis himself understood what he was about to do. His mouth opened. They're not afraid of her, he said. Not loudly, not quietly, just said. The 2 nearest nobles turned their heads in perfect terrified unison. Hollis kept going. Because once a sentence is out, It is out, and the universe has never once put a sentence back in. They're afraid, he said, of looking small next to her. The whispers came, not the polite kind, the other kind. The imperial moderator halfway across the room stopped talking mid-syllable, turned his violet head, slowly, like a man who had just heard a sound he could not quite name. Aurelia heard it too. She did not turn fully. She turned just enough. Just enough for one luminous sapphire eye to find Hollis Marek across the marble floor. Just enough for that eye to widen. One increment, no more. And then she looked away. But he saw it. He saw the thing that landed on her face. It was not anger. It was not amusement. It was the smallest, sharpest, most fragile thing. It was surprise. A hand closed around his elbow. "Mr. Marek," said a voice, low, practiced, the kind of calm that had been rehearsed. Hollis turned. Ambassador Vayerin stood beside him. Bronze skin, green eyes, thin metallic patterns running along his collarbones like circuitry etched into flesh. His grip was not strong. It was also not optional. "Walk with me," Vayerin said. "Am I in trouble?" "You are in," Vayerin said. "What your people would call hot water." "That's a yes. That is a yes." They walked. Behind them, the moderator was already calling the ceremony to a close. Aurelia was already turning towards the side chamber, her platinum hair pouring down her back like something poured from a moon. The nobles were already parting around her. In that particular way, nobles part around something they would prefer not to touch. Hollis looked back, once. Then she was gone. The corridor outside was a mile long, tall enough to fly a small ship through. Statues lined the walls. Crystal, stone, things that watched. Varin did not release his elbow until they had passed 3 of the watching statues. Then he let go, folded his long fingers behind his back, kept walking. Hollis kept up. The boots kept murdering him. "You spoke," Varin said. "I did." "In court?" "Yes. In front of 700 nobles. Approximately. Including," Varin said, "2 members of the High Council." Hollis winced. "I was going to ask which 2. You do not want to know which 2. That's worse. That is worse." A pause. They kept walking. Their footsteps echoed. Somewhere behind a distant wall, a servant ran in the opposite direction. The corridor opened ahead of them. Through a transparent ceiling, the planet below turned slowly. Cloud bands, oceans, a continent shaped like nothing on Earth. Hollis watched it for a moment. He was suddenly very aware of how far from home he was. Then he said quietly, "Ambassador, may I ask you something?" "You may." "How many times has she been refused?" Varin did not answer right away. 17, he finally said. "Now." "In how long?" "Approximately," Varin said. "2 of your years." Hollis stopped walking. Varin stopped too. 2 years. Yes. 17 refusals. Yes. Of marriage. Of bonding, Varin corrected. "It is not the same." "But it is the same." The ambassador exhaled, slowly. "It is," he said. "The same." Hollis looked at him. Varin looked back. And for the first time since meeting him, Hollis had the strange, impossible feeling that this very calm, very correct, very imperial diplomat was about to say something he was not supposed to say. But Varin only said, "Return to your quarters, Mr. Marek. There will be inquiries. Be in formal robes by the 3rd bell. Speak to no one. And if a noble greets you in the corridor—" "Yes." "Pretend," Varin said, "that you do not understand the language." Hollis smiled, despite himself. "That," he said, "I can do." Varin nodded once, turned, walked away. His footsteps faded down the long corridor like a clock that had decided to stop ticking. Hollis stood alone. Above him, the planet turned. Below his ribs, something small and quiet did the thing it had been doing for 4 years. It hurt. His quarters were on the 7th diplomatic ring, small for an alien, spacious for a human. A bed, a desk, a window that opened to the docking bay where shuttles came and went like patient insects. A drawer. He sat on the bed. He looked at the drawer. He did not open it for about a minute. Then he opened it. Inside the drawer were three things: a data pad full of unread messages from his mother in Portland, a small steel pin in the shape of the Earth Alliance crest, and a photograph. The photograph was the only object in the entire room that had not been issued to him by the diplomatic service. It was paper, actual paper, yellowing at the edges. He picked it up with the careful, two-handed reverence of a man handling something more valuable than the warships outside the dome. It was a picture of a woman, small, crooked smile, brown hair tucked behind one ear, sitting on a porch somewhere in Oregon, laughing at something the photographer had said. The light was the light of late afternoon, the kind that makes everything look like it lasts forever. Aloan. He stared at her. She stared back through 4 years and several light years in the particular silence that exists between the living and the dead. Hi, he said. She kept laughing. I might have done something, he said. Stupid. She kept laughing. You would have liked her, he said. I think. Behind his eyes something stung. He blinked, because Aloan had been a nurse. Aloan had been the kind of person who held the hands of people nobody else would hold. Aloan had also been the one whose hand nobody had wanted to hold at the end, because the disease had been rare. Rare enough that no one quite understood it. Rare enough that the rumors had said, maybe, it was contagious. Even the doctors had hesitated in those last weeks. Even the doctors. So Hollis had held her hand, every day, every night, until the morning he had walked into the room, and the hand was still there, but Elowen was not. He set the photograph down, face up, on the desk. He sat on the bed. He looked at the ceiling. Then he said out loud, to no one, yeah, you would have liked her. There was a knock at the door, not the chime of the diplomatic doorbell. A knock, a human sound. He looked up. The door slid open on its own, because doors on Helios Prime did not wait for permission. And in the doorway stood a woman, not young, not old, somewhere north of 60, silver in her hair, wrapped in the plain gray robes of the domestic staff, a small linen cloth folded over one arm. Her eyes were sharp. She said nothing for a moment. She just looked at him, the way a woman looks at a man when she is measuring whether he will do. Then she stepped inside, closed the door behind her. And Hollis, who was 30 years old and a trained diplomat and had recently survived a room of 700 hostile nobles, found himself doing what any sensible man does when a strange grandmother enters his room uninvited. He stood up. Ma'am, he said. She almost smiled. You may call me Winifred, she said. Ma'am Winifred. Just Winifred. Just Winifred, he repeated. She looked at the photograph on the desk. She did not touch it. She only looked. Then she looked at him. Your wife, she said. Yes. She had a kind face. She did. Did you hold her hand? He blinked. I did. To the end. To the end. Winifred nodded once. To herself. To no one. Then from the folded linen cloth over her arm, she took something out. A piece of paper. Not imperial paper. Not the smooth crystalline surface the nobles wrote on. Actual paper. Yellowed. Folded and refolded so many times the creases had turned white. She held it out to him. Read this, she said. What is it? A page from a diary. Whose diary? Winifred did not answer. He took the paper. He unfolded it. The writing was in common imperial script. A young hand. Careful. The letters had been shaped by someone who had been taught them slowly and who had practiced. He read, I am 15 today. Nobody knows. They will not celebrate it. They will not remember it. They will bring me my meals and take away my plates, and if I speak, they will lower their heads, and if I do not speak, they will lower their heads, and I do not know which is worse. He looked up. Winifred was watching him. He looked back down. I have decided today to write down the only question I have ever wanted to ask, the one they will never let me ask out loud. Not to a physician, not to my instructor, not to the mirror, not to the stars. Is there anyone, anywhere, who would dare to hold my hand? Hollis's throat closed. He kept reading. I do not think there is. I have decided this is fine. I have decided I will grow up, and I will be beautiful, and I will be feared, and I will be alone, and that will be enough. But if I am being honest with the paper, only with the paper, I would like to be wrong. He stopped. He read the last line again. I would like to be wrong. Signed, not with a name, signed with a single letter. A. He looked up. Winifred's face had not changed, but her hands, folded in front of her, were trembling, just slightly. How old is she now, he asked. 25. So this was 10 years ago. And she still, he handed the paper back. Winifred took it, refolded it, with the same slow reverence he had used to pick up Eloin's photograph. Then she looked at him. Mr. Marek. Yes, you spoke in court today. I did. You said the wrong sentence. I know. You said the true sentence. He paused. I did. There has not been a true sentence spoken in that court, Winifred said in a very long time. Ma'am, Winifred, why are you telling me this? She tilted her head. Because you asked her a question. I did not ask her anything. You asked her a question, she said, in front of 700 people, without saying it, and she heard it. He stared at her. What question? Winifred smiled. It was the smallest smile, the saddest smile, the smile of a woman who had waited a very long time to smile. You asked her, she said, if there was another hand. The third bell rang. He went to the inquiry. 3 novels in a small office. Polite questions, polite answers. A polite reminder that the Earth Alliance was a junior member of the diplomatic accord, and that junior members ought to be cautious in their public observations. Hollis was very polite. He apologized. He did not mean it. The nobles seemed satisfied. They dismissed him. He walked back through the corridor of the 7th ring. The corridor was quiet. Past dinner for most species, not yet dinner for others, which meant the only beings in motion were the cleaning drones and a single steward who bowed as Hollis passed. He nodded back. The boots were still trying to murder him. He was about to turn into the side passage that led to his quarters when he saw her. She was standing on the observation balcony. The balcony was not officially open at this hour. The lights were low. The stars beyond the glass were very bright. Her platinum hair caught the starlight in a way that made it look not like hair at all, but like the long, slow trail of a comet. She was alone. Of course she was alone. He started to turn away, because he was not foolish, because junior diplomats did not loiter around imperial noblewomen, because his elbows still remembered Varen's grip. Except she had heard him, except she had turned her head, except her sapphire eyes were on him now, and she was not looking away. He froze. The diplomatic part of his brain said bow. He bowed. The diplomatic part of his brain said retreat. He did not retreat. The other part of his brain, the part that had buried Eloin and then gotten on a transport and crossed 6 star systems to stand in a room full of strangers, that part of his brain said one word, stay. So he stayed. She watched him. He watched her back. Lady Aurelia, he said. His voice came out smaller than he wanted. Mr. Marek. His name in her mouth was a strange thing. Soft, careful, like she had practiced it. Maybe she had. He cleared his throat. I should probably go. You should. I'm going to. You are not moving. I have noticed that. A small sound came out of her. Almost a sound. Not quite. The starlight on her temples brightened. 1 careful degree. He took a step, then another. Then he was beside her at the railing. Below them, far below, the curve of the docking ring and the sleeping shapes of cargo vessels at their moorings. Above them, the stars, between them and the warships of the Empire drifting in their slow geometry of patience. She did not look at him. She looked at the warships. You spoke, she said. I did. You should not have. I have been told. By whom? By Ambassador Varen, by my conscience, by my boots. Your boots. They are unhappy with me. She turned, just slightly, just enough to look at him sideways. Why did you speak? He thought about lying. He thought about a dozen lies. Diplomatic ones, polite ones that would let him go back to a small room and a small drawer and a small picture, and never be in another chamber with a noble woman of the empire ever again. He did not lie. You looked, he said, like someone I used to know. She did not move. Who? My wife. A beat. You have a wife. I had a... The word had fell between them like a stone dropped into a deep well. She did not say I am sorry. Most people did. Most people said it because they had to. Most people said it and then changed the subject, because the weight of someone else's grief was too heavy to carry on a balcony at night. Aurelia did not change the subject. She said, "Tell me." He looked at her. She looked back. There were people he thought who asked you to tell them about your dead, the way they asked you to tell them about the weather. Out of habit, out of script. And then there were people who asked the way she had just asked. He told her. He told her about a low and small laugh, about the porch in Oregon, about the brown hair tucked behind the ear, about the nursing degree and the hand-on-hand kind of love. He told her about the diagnosis, about the word rare, about how the word rare sounded in the mouths of doctors who did not actually know what to do. He told her about the way the nurses had started in the last weeks to take just a half step back from the doorway when they came in. Not enough to be cruel, just enough. He told her about the morning. He did not give details about the morning. He said only that there had been a morning, and that after the morning he had walked out of the room and not been able to walk back in. Then he told her about the rumor, about how people in the small town where he had lived had begun after Eloin's death to cross to the other side of the street when they saw him. Not out of malice, out of something else. Out of the small, unspoken fear that what had taken Eloin might still be on him, in him, near him. He told her how it felt to be a man people stepped away from. When he finished, the balcony was very quiet. She was looking at him, her hand on the railing, very still. The faint glow beneath her skin was a slow, steady pulse. "You understand," she said. "Some of it. More than they do." She nodded once, to herself, to no one. Then she said, "Mr. Marek, Hollis, Hollis. Yes, I have been refused 17 times. I know. I have stood in that chamber, in front of 700 nobles, and I have asked 17 men of my own kind to bond their lives to mine. Yes, and every one of them. I know. Do you know what they fear? They say it's your gift. They say. You don't believe them. I believe them," she said. "Less every year." He waited. She did not say what she believed instead. Instead, she said, "May I ask you a question?" "Please." "Today in the court, when you spoke." "Yes." "You said they were not afraid of me." "Yes." "You said they were afraid of looking small beside me." "Yes." "Why did you say that?" He thought about it. He thought about it for a long time. Then he said, "Because the nurses in my wife's hospital were not afraid of catching anything. They were afraid of failing. They were afraid that if they got too close, they might not be enough. So they took a half step back. And I think your nobles took the same half step and dressed it up in something larger, so they would not have to feel small." Her eyes did not leave his face. For a long moment she did not breathe. And then she laughed. It was not a long laugh. It was not a loud laugh. It was a small, surprised, almost embarrassed laugh. The laugh of a person who had not laughed in a very long time, and had forgotten how the muscles of the face arranged themselves when they did. It startled her. He saw it startle her. Her hand went briefly to her mouth, as if to catch the sound and put it back. But it was too late. The laugh was out. The laugh was in the air. The laugh was in his ears. The laugh was in some quiet, deep, locked room of him that had been very dark for a very long time. And in that room, a light came on. He did not say anything for a moment. Neither did she. The stars kept doing their indifferent thing. Finally, she said, very softly, "You are the first person today who has not looked at me like I might destroy them." He shrugged. "If you were going to destroy me, you'd have done it by now." She smiled, properly, a small smile, a real one. "That is a poor argument," she said. "I know. It would not hold in any court. I am aware. And yet you believe it. I believe it. She studied him. Then she said, Hollis Marek. Yes. Why are you here? He blinked. On the balcony. On Helios Prime. He opened his mouth. He closed it. Because the answer was a 6-month logistics rotation arranged by the Earth Alliance pursuant to junior member protocols of the Imperial Accord. But that was not the true answer. The true answer was sitting in a drawer 2 chambers away with a small crooked smile and brown hair tucked behind one ear. The true answer was that 6 months ago in an office in Geneva, he had read a thin 3-paragraph briefing about a foreign noblewoman whose own people had begun to step back from her in a chamber of marble and stars. And something in him had stood up. Something in him had walked across that office. Something in him had said, I will go. He did not say all of that to her. He said only, I read a report about a noblewoman who was being avoided by her own people. She went very still. And you came, she said. I came. For me. For her. A pause. For you, he amended. The glow beneath her skin pulsed once. Not bright, not dim, just a single soft beat, like a heart. She did not speak for a long time. Then she said, almost too quietly to hear, No one has come for me. No one. Not in this way. He looked at her. Then someone should have. She turned back to the stars. He watched her watch them. And then, because his mouth had decided long ago that diplomacy was not its job, his mouth said, For what it's worth, you're not what they think. And what, she said, do they think? They think you're a weapon. She did not answer. You're not? How would you know? Because weapons don't laugh on balconies. She looked at him sideways. The corner of her mouth moved. You are a very strange diplomat. I have been told. 2 chambers away in a smaller, dimmer office, another kind of evening was happening. Ambassador Varen was not having a balcony evening. He was sitting across from a man in a dark gray robe. The man had no name on his door. The man had no rank pin on his collar. The man was by any official record. A minor administrative functionary of the Office of Cultural Records. But the moment he had walked into the room, Varen had risen and bowed, because the man's name was Malvain. And Malvain was the second most powerful man in the empire. He was not in this small office at this late hour here about cultural records. 17, Malvain said. His voice was thin, dry, like paper turned too many times. Yes, High Counselor. And the human. Yes. He spoke. He did. In open court. Yes. How interesting. The word interesting landed on the desk like a knife placed very gently. Varen did not respond. There was no safe response to interesting when Malvain said it. Malvain steepled his thin fingers. Tell me, Varen. Yes. Of the 17 suitors. Yes. How many, Malvain said softly, were ours? A long silence. Varen's oath, which had spent 20 years rehearsing the precise diplomatic distance between truth and survival, did not move. Malvain smiled. The smile was small, dry. You need not answer, he said. I know the Count. I commissioned the Count. He rose. He smoothed his robe. The girl, he said, is not to bond, not yet, not until I say, understood, High Counselor. And the human, yes, he is to be. Malvain paused, chose the word with pleasure. Managed. He walked to the door, then he stopped. Varen. Yes. There is a woman in domestic staff on the 7th ring, a grandmother, silver hair, serves in the noblewoman's private wing. Varen's face did not move. Yes. She has been there. How long? 22 years, High Counselor. 22 years. Yes. Watch her, Malvain said. Something about her has always. He did not finish. He did not need to. The door closed behind him with a sound like a sigh. Varen sat alone for a long moment. He did not move. He did not breathe. Then, very slowly, very deliberately, He reached up to the metallic pattern on his collarbone and pressed a small place that no one but him knew was there. A small light blinked. Once. A message was sent. It went to a coded relay in the asteroid belt. It bounced. It bounced again. It traveled in pieces to a small green moon at the edge of the Imperial frontier, where a woman with silver in her hair had spent 25 years waiting. She felt the chime of the message in the back of her mind. She did not turn from the flowers in her windowsill. She only closed her eyes and whispered to the wind coming across the moor, "Hold on, my child. Hold on." Back on the balcony, Aurelia was telling Hollis about her gift. She did not call it her gift. She called it the thing. The thing, she said, is not what they say. What do they say? They say I can command the fleet. Can you? I can interface with it. There is a difference. To command is to push. To interface is to listen. To stand still in the very loud room and hear all the voices at once. That sounds exhausting. It is, sometimes. It is also, sometimes, the most beautiful thing in the world. He looked at her. Tell me. She hesitated. Then she said, when I interface with a fleet, I feel them. Each ship, each engine, each small life inside each ship. I feel the heartbeats of the crews. I feel the dreams in the bunks. I feel, she paused, I feel that I am not alone. He did not speak. She went on. And then the interface ends, and I am. She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to. He remembered a hospital room, a hand, the morning. I'm sorry, he said. Do not be sorry. I am anyway. A pause, then she said, Hollis. Yes. May I ask you one more question? Anything. Why did you really come? He had told her about the report. He had told her about the briefing. He had not told her the rest. He looked at the stars. He looked at her, he said, because there was a woman whose hand nobody would hold. And I held it. And then she was gone. And then there was nobody to hold. And it nearly killed me, the not holding. So when I read about you, I think, part of me thought. He stopped. She waited. I thought, he said, maybe there is another hand. She did not breathe. She did not move. Her sapphire eyes in the starlight were very full and very still. She did not speak. She did not have to, because at that exact moment, the balcony shook. A low vibration came up from beneath her feet, the kind of vibration that traveled through the ribs of the station before it traveled through the ears. The lights of the docking ring below them shifted color, from soft blue to muted amber. Aurelia straightened. Her face changed. The softness was not gone, but it was suddenly held inside something harder, something that had been waiting underneath, all along. That, she said, is not a ceremonial alert. A voice came through the station. Imperial Defense Network activated. Unidentified fleet entering restricted space. Hollis's heart did something unhelpful. Whose fleet, he said. She did not answer. She did not have to. A second voice cut in, sharper. Visual identification confirmed. House Corathan. Approach vector hostile. Hollis looked at her. Corathan. A rival house. Why are they here? She closed her eyes. For a moment. Just a moment. All the lines beneath her skin pulsed once, in unison, like a single struck bell. They are here, she said quietly, for me. But something else was happening under her closed eyes. The interface was open, just a thread of it, just enough to hear. And what she heard made her go still, not the way a person goes still when they are calm, the way a person goes still when they have just heard a lie inside their own house. Hollis. Yes. The Corathan ships are coming in through the third sector shield. Okay. The third sector shield, she said, is the one nobody outside the station knows about. He stared at her. You mean? I mean, she said. Someone told them. Someone inside. Someone high inside. A new voice. Different. Heavier. Older. It came not through the public address system, but through some private channel projected from the very air around her by the implants beneath her temples. Lady Aurelia, Neural Command Interface Authorization requested. Estimated hostile contact in 11 minutes. She did not open her eyes. You cannot, Hollis said. Alone. I have done it before. Have you? She opened her eyes. Almost. He stared at her. Almost. There is a reason, she said. They call the interface Dangerous Hollis. Tell me. It requires a partner. Tell me what happens when there isn't one. The mind that interfaces alone with that much, she said, does not always come back. And without you. Without me, the fleet does not move in time. The defenses do not coordinate. Corathan passes the perimeter. The civilian rings. She did not finish. He understood. The balcony shook again, harder this time. From somewhere above the dome, a faint flicker of light. Then another. Distant ships beginning the slow choreography of dying. She turned to him. Her face was composed. It was a terrible composure. The composure of a person who had decided a long time ago what she was going to do the next time someone asked her to walk alone into a fire. Hollis, yes, you should go to the shelters. No, this is not your fight. No, but it's not yours either. You just got told it was. That is not how this works. That is exactly how this works. She stared at him. Behind her, the alarms grew louder. Below them, 100 small craft began to move in the docking ring. Above them, the warships began the long, slow, beautiful drift into combat formation. Hollis looked at her. He looked at the railing. He looked at his hand. He remembered Aloan. A hand. The morning. All the half steps back. And he thought, no, not this time. His mouth opened before his brain could veto it. Lady Aurelia. Hollis, please. Lady Aurelia. She fell silent. The alarms whined around them. I took a breath. He took a small step forward. He took the small step that nobody else in 17 ceremonies had taken. What if, he said, there were another hand? Her eyes widened. Just a fraction. Just enough. Hollis. I'm not proposing, he said quickly. I'm asking. This is not how the ceremony works. I know. This is not how anything works. I know. You do not know what it will do to you. I have a guess. You will not survive it. You don't know that. Yes, I do. You said almost. She stopped. Almost, he said. You said almost, which means somebody somewhere sometime has survived part of it, which means it's not zero. Her glow flickered. That is, she said, not nothing. That is not nothing. He held out his hand. His hand was shaking. He noticed his hand was shaking. He thought about hiding that. He didn't hide it. The shaking was honest. The shaking was Aloan. The shaking was every step he had not taken back from a hospital bed. Aurelia. It was the first time he had said her name without her title. It came out of him soft, bare, the way a person says a word they have been afraid to say for a very long time. And finally, lets it out into a room. She stared at his hand. She did not move. The alarm screamed. The station shook. A voice in the air said, 8 minutes. She looked up at his face, his eyes, what she saw there. He did not know. Behind her, in the shadow of the doorway leading back into the corridor, another figure had appeared. Silver hair, plain gray robes, watching. Winifred did not speak. She did not step forward. She only pressed one hand flat against her own chest, over her own heart, as if to steady something inside it. Aurelia did not see her. Aurelia only saw him. She took a breath. A small, fragile, almost human-sounding breath. And then her hand, slowly, lifted from the railing and reached for his. The glow beneath her skin brightened. The lines along her temples lit up bright and slow, like soft rivers of light. Her fingers paused just before touching his. She looked at him one more time. You are sure? No, he said. I am not sure. Then, but I am not afraid. A small, broken, laughed from her. That, she said, is the worst combination. I know. I am going to remember you said that. I hope you do. Her hand closed around his. The light, when it came, was not light. It was a great, soft, roaring inside his chest. It was the sound of every voice in every ship, in every formation, suddenly becoming a single chord. It was 1,000 engines humming at once. It was 1,000 heartbeats. It was the deep, deep ringing of the bell of the universe being struck for the first time in his hearing. He gasped, his knees buckled. He did not fall. She held him up. Or he held her up. It was no longer clear which. Around them, the lights of the docking ring shifted color. Around them, the warships beyond the dome began suddenly and silently to pivot in perfect formation. Around them, every screen and every command center in the Imperial fleet lit up with a single name, Aurelia, and next to it for the first time in the history of the Empire, another name, Hollis Marek. In the small, dim office 2 chambers away, Malvain was watching a screen. He had not moved when the alarms began. He did not move now, but his eyes, when the second name appeared, did something they had not done in many years. They widened. He rose from his chair. He walked to the window. He looked out at the warships and at the slow, beautiful turn of the fleet, and at the very small balcony far down on the seventh ring where 2 figures were standing with their hands together in the starlight. He did not speak. He did not have to. He simply lifted one thin finger and pressed it to a small panel on the wall, and somewhere far away in the silent maze of the Empire, a name was added to a list, Hollis Marek. The list was not a list of suitors. The list was the other kind of list. And on a small green moon at the edge of the frontier, a woman watering her flowers stopped mid-pour, lifted her head, and for the first time in 25 years, allowed herself one single tear, because she had felt it through the long, long thread that no one had ever known was there between her and her daughter. She had felt the moment. She had felt the hand. She had felt the second heartbeat enter the room. And in the corridor above the balcony, Winifred was still standing in the shadow of the doorway, one hand pressed over her heart. Her lips moved. She did not say the words out loud, but they were. Sister, do you feel it too? 25 years of silence between 2 women who had once shared a nursery. 25 years of a promise kept without ever being spoken. And now, finally, a second heartbeat. Out on the balcony, Hollis and Aurelia stood with their hands together, both breathing, both alive. The Corythan ships were still coming. 8 minutes had become 7. The bond hummed under his ribs like a second pulse, and through it he could feel her, feel the map of every ship in the sky above them, feel the hostile fleet closing in, feel one very small hot spike deep in the 3rd sector shield array. A leak, a signal, a traitor. Aurelia felt him feel it. Her eyes met his. You see it, she said. I see it. Someone opened the door for them. Someone opened the door. She looked up at the sky, out at the warships beginning their long, slow, beautiful turn. Her platinum hair moved slightly in the recycled station air. Her sapphire eyes were bright. Her hand did not let go of his. Then Hollis Marek, she said, you and I are about to find out. Who? The stars kept doing their indifferent thing. The alarms kept singing. And somewhere far below them, in a small, dim office, a thin man in a gray robe was already reaching for a second panel. Because a fleet was coming. Because a bond had formed. Because a lie that had held for 25 years had just begun, very quietly, to crack. Part 2. The bond did not end when the battle ended. That was the first thing Hollis learned. He learned it the way a man learns most important things, by being in the middle of it, before anyone bothered to explain it. The Corythan fleet had pulled back at the perimeter. Their crimson engines had cooled. Their slow, hostile arc had reversed itself in the silent way that hostile arcs reverse themselves when the math of the engagement suddenly stops favoring the aggressor. The Imperial formations had folded into themselves like a closed flower. The dome had stopped shaking. The alarms had stopped screaming. The balcony was quiet again. Except except Hollis could still hear them. The ships, all of them. The slow hum of 3,000 reactors, the breath of 10,000 sleeping crew, the patient tick of 100 shield matrices coming down to standby. The small, distant lullaby of a galaxy he had no business hearing the inside of. He could hear it the way a person hears the ocean inside a shell, except the shell was his own skull, and the ocean would not stop. He stood very still. Aurelia's hand was still in his. He did not let go. The ocean would get louder. Hollis! Her voice close, close. Hollis, breathe. I am breathing. You are holding your breath. That is not the same. No, he breathed. The roar in his chest did not go away. It quieted. By a degree, like a great machine settling into a lower gear. Better, she asked. Define better. Are you upright? Tentatively. Then better. He laughed. It came out wrong, cracked, like a thing that had not been used in a while. He had not laughed in 4 years, he noticed. He filed it away to think about later. Later turned out to be very soon. Because his knees did the thing knees do when a man has just experienced more than his knees were ever consulted about. They folded. She caught him. She lowered him to the balcony floor, carefully, as if he were the precious thing, which was an upside-down universe. Which was in fact the upside-down universe he now lived in. She knelt beside him. Her face was closed. Her sapphire eyes had darkened to something deeper, something almost violet at the edges. The lines beneath her temples were not glowing anymore. They were doing the slow pulse of a heart that had run very hard and was just now slowing down. Stay with me, she said. I am. Stay. Aurelia, I am right here. I know. She said it softly. I am asking anyway. I understood then why she was asking, because every other time, every single other time, she had ever stood next to a mind that was not her own. That mind had run from the room, from the chamber, from the bond. The asking was old. The asking was for everybody who had ever taken the half step back. He did not take the half step back. He stayed. He turned his hand over inside hers and closed his fingers around hers, like a man closing a door against a wind. I'm here, he said. Yes. I'm not going anywhere. Yes. Stop saying yes like you don't believe me. A small smile, a tired one. I will work on it, she said. Ambassador Varen found them on the balcony. He did not ask what had happened. He did not need to. He stood at the entrance for a full 10 seconds without speaking. He looked at the 2 figures on the floor. He looked at the lines of light still faintly visible along the human's wrist. He looked at the way the noble woman's free hand was on the human's shoulder. Not professionally, not ceremonially, the way a person touches another person. Then he closed his eyes, briefly, like a man recalibrating an entire decade of assumptions. Lady Aurelia. Varen. He requires medical attention. Yes. He should not be moved by hand. Then bring a stretcher. My lady. Bring it. Varen. He bowed, he left. He came back very quickly with 2 of his own people. Not court medics. His own. Hollis did not understand the distinction yet. He would soon. They lifted him. The ocean in his head sloshed. He made a small sound that was meant to be dignified, and was not. Aurelia walked beside the stretcher. She did not let go of his hand the entire way. He did not remember the corridor. He remembered her hand. The infirmary was on the diplomatic ring, not the imperial one. Varen had made that decision, and made it quickly. Hollis, drifting somewhere just below the surface of his own skull, registered the decision without understanding it. He did not yet know that the diplomatic infirmary had different scanners, different sensors, different reporting protocols. He did not yet know that Varen had just hidden him. The bed was soft, the lights were low. A medic with 4 arms and a voice like a violin asked him questions he answered without remembering answering. A scanner hummed over him. The hum was the same pitch as the reactors he had heard in his head. He flinched. Easy, said the medic. Sorry. You are a very lucky man, Mr. Marek. I am tired of being told that. I imagine. Aurelia was in a chair. She had not left the chair. Varen stood at the door outside pretending not to watch. Failing. The medic finished, took readings, looked at them, looked again, made the small surprise sound that medics make when their readings have decided to be more interesting than expected. "What?" said Aurelia. The medic looked up. "His neural pathways are reorganizing. Reorganizing. In a way I have not seen before." "Is he in danger?" "He is in," the medic said carefully, "uncharted territory." Aurelia closed her eyes. The medic looked at her, then at him. "It is not bad," the medic added quickly. "It is not bad, my lady. It is just. Just. It is human. It is adapting." A pause. Aurelia opened her eyes. She looked at Hollis. He was by then more or less awake. The roar had quieted. The ocean had become a sea. The sea had become a lake. The lake was still there, always now. He could feel it without listening. He met her eyes. "It's getting quieter," he said. "Yes. It's not gone. No. It is not going to be gone. No." And then he said, very quietly, "How long have you lived with this?" She did not answer for a long time. Then she said, "Since I was a child." His throat tightened. He was about to say something. He did not know what. He never said it. Because the moment he closed his eyes, something happened that was not supposed to happen. He saw something that was not in the room. He saw a woman. She was not Aurelia. She was older, tall. Her hair was darker. Her eyes were a different blue. She was holding a baby. The baby was crying. The woman was singing, a soft, low song that Hollis did not understand, but somehow knew the shape of. The song was a lullaby. The song was a goodbye. There was a door behind the woman. The door was opening. Hands came through the door, not violent, just there, reaching. The kind of hands that were not asking permission. The woman did not stop singing. She kissed the baby's forehead. She handed the baby through the door. The door closed. The woman did not move for a long time. Then her knees gave out, and the woman, who looked nothing and everything like Aurelia, fell to the floor of a room Hollis had never been in, and pressed her forehead to the cold stone, and did not make a sound. Hollis jerked upright. He gasped. The medic startled. Aurelia was on her feet before he had taken a breath. "What is it?" "Hollis, what is it?" He could not speak. He could only stare at her. Because the eyes of the woman in the vision had been different. But the bones had been the same. The cheekbones, the brow, the way the chin came down to a soft point. He had just seen, he was almost certain. Aurelia's mother, the woman who had, according to the official records of the Empire, died bringing Aurelia into the world. "Hollis, I... Hollis, what did you see?" "I saw..." He stopped. He looked at her. She was waiting. He could not say it. Not yet. Not until he was sure. Because if he was wrong, he was going to break her, in a way that should not be broken. On a stretcher. In an infirmary. In front of a violinist medic and a diplomat pretending not to eavesdrop. "I saw," he said carefully, "a memory, I think. I think one of yours." She went very still. "That is not possible." "It happened anyway. The bond is not supposed to." "I know." "What did you see?" "Aurelia, what did you see?" He took her hand again. "Give me one day." Her eyes searched his face. He was a very poor liar. She did not need a bond to see that he was holding something back. She saw it, the way she had seen it in 17 men in 17 ceremonies. But Hollis, she also saw, was not holding it back from her. He was holding it back for her. There is a difference. "One day," she said, "one day, and then you will tell me, and then I will tell you." The day was 26 hours long on Helios Prime. Hollis used 25 of them. I used them quietly. He used them the way a former neural researcher who had spent the last 4 years pretending to be a logistics officer used them. Carefully. With the small, almost forgotten skill set of a man who had once written algorithms that read the patterns of human memory. Yes, he had been a neural researcher. Yes, he had been good. Yes, he had walked away from it the morning Elowen died. And he had not opened those notebooks since. Until now. Now he opened them. He sat in his small quarters. The boots were off. The photograph of Elowen was on the desk. She was still laughing. He logged into the diplomatic data network with his low-level access. Then he used the small set of skills he had hoped never to use. The kind of skills you do not put on a diplomatic resume. The kind of skills you learn in a research lab where men with no name pins occasionally pass through and offer you a job you politely refuse. He went looking for one file. Lady Aurelia Nix, birth record, Imperial Medical Archive. He found it, he read it, then he read it again. Then he leaned back in his chair, and he stared at the ceiling, and he laughed. Not the good laugh, the other one. The bitter, quiet, of course laugh of a man who has just realized that the people in charge of the universe are exactly as careless as the people in charge of every smaller thing. Because the file was sloppy. Whoever had altered the file had done it well enough to fool a casual reader. They had not done it well enough to fool a researcher who had once in a small office in Portland spent 2 years auditing falsified records of patients in unauthorized clinical trials. The file said Aurelia's mother had died on the day of Aurelia's birth. The file said the death certificate had been issued by the imperial court physician. The file said the mother's body had been returned to her family estate for the traditional rites. The file did not say which family estate. The file did not say which physician. The file did not say what the cause of death had been, and buried deep in the metadata. So deep that the alteration had been made before the metadata fields had been standardized. There was one small line that read, "Subject transferred, Frontier Moon, Sector 7 Gamma." The line was 25 years old. The line had not been deleted, just hidden. The mother of Lady Aurelia had not died. She had been moved. He sat in the chair for a long time, his hand on the photograph of Elowen. Elowen still laughing. He remembered the woman in the vision, the lullaby, the door, the hands, a child raised in a court of marble and starlight. 25 years of a young woman being told her mother had died for her. What that was going to do to that young woman when she found out the truth. Whether he should let her find out at all. He waited for 1 full minute. Then he closed the file. He stood up. He picked up Elowen's photograph. He kissed it once, lightly, on the small crooked smile. "Yeah," he said. "I know what you'd say." Elowen said nothing. She didn't have to. He went to find Aurelia, but someone else found him first. He turned into the corridor, and there she was, Winifred. Silver hair, plain gray robes, a small linen cloth over one arm. Except this time, under the cloth, something else. She stepped into his path. "Mr. Marek." "Just Winifred. Just Winifred. I have something to tell you. I have something to ask you. Ask first. Are you her mother?" Winifred blinked. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "No." "But you know her." "Yes." "You know something about her mother." Winifred was silent. Then she said, "I am her aunt." The corridor went very quiet. "Her mother," Winifred said, "Lady Isolde, is my sister." "Is." Present tense. Hollis leaned against the wall. He had known. He had known since the vision. But knowing a thing is one thing. Hearing another human being say it out loud is another. "How long have you been here?" he said. 22 years. "You came when?" "When she was 3. To watch her. To watch her. To touch her forehead when she had fever. To brush her hair when she was small. To be the one arm around her that was not a lie. And she does not know. She does not know." He looked at Winifred. He looked at her for a long time. At the silver hair. At the sharp eyes. At the hands folded over the small linen cloth. 22 years. 22 years of walking past a niece who did not know she had an aunt. 22 years of putting a warm cloth on a small forehead in the dark. 22 years of a promise that could never once be spoken. "Why," he said, "are you telling me now?" "Because Varen told me to." "Varen." "Yes." "Varen." "Yes." "The ambassador." "He is not," Winifred said. "Only an ambassador." Hollis stared at her. Winifred lifted the linen cloth. Under it was a small silver disc. She pressed it into his hand. "Give this to her," she said. "What is it?" "A key." "A key to what?" "To the truth." He looked at the disc. He looked at her. "Winifred." "Yes. Why can't you give it to her yourself?" Her eyes filled, just briefly. Then she blinked, and it was gone. "Because she does not know me," she said. "Not yet. And if she is going to hear this, she should hear it from someone she has chosen, not from a woman who has been folding her sheets." He closed his hand around the disc. "Winifred." "Yes. When this is over." "Yes. You are going to hold her hand." Winifred's mouth trembled. "Just once." Then she nodded. "Once." He found Aurelia on the balcony. Of course he did. She was standing exactly where she had stood the night before. Hands on the railing, hair pouring down her back like light. Stars above. The warships had returned to their lazy formations. Nobody was firing at anyone. The peace was a thin, polite, suspicious peace. A peace that was watching. He came up beside her. She did not turn. "You did not sleep," she said. "How do you know?" "I can feel you." A pause. "That is going to take some getting used to. For both of us." "Aurelia, you found something." "Yes." She turned then. She looked at him. She did not ask what, because she had seen his face. "Tell me," she said. He told her. He told her about the file. He told her about the metadata. He told her about a small 25-year-old line that nobody had bothered to scrub. He told her about a frontier moon in Sector 7 Gamma. He told her gently that her mother had not died. She did not move. She did not speak. For a long, terrible time. She did not even blink. The glow beneath her skin did something he had not seen it do before. It went dark, all the way dark, as if every light inside her had stepped backward at once and left her standing only in starlight. Then, slowly, from somewhere very deep, the glow came back, different, pale, the color of dawn through fog. "You are sure?" "I'm sure." "How sure?" "As sure," he said, "as I have ever been about anything." Hollis. "Yes. If you are wrong, I am not. If you are." "Aurelia, I would not have said it, if I were not." She looked at him. Her eyes were full of something that was not quite tears. Tears would have been simpler. This was older than tears. This was the thing that lived underneath tears. 25 years, she whispered. "Yes." "They told me she died for me." "Yes." "They told me her body went home for the rites." "Yes." "There were no rights, were there?" "There were no rights." She turned back to the stars. She was very, very quiet. He let her be quiet. He understood quiet. Alawan had taught him quiet. After a long time, she said, "Take me to her." He blinked. "Take you." "You said you knew the Aurelia, you said you knew the sector." "I did, but that is—" "Hollis. That is a frontier moon outside Imperial space." "I know. To go there, we would need a ship, and I have a ship." He stared at her. "You have a ship. I have several." "Of course you do. I am a noblewoman of the Empire." A pause. "And Aurelia, if we leave the station without authorization, the Council will. The Council will not know." "How?" "Because we are not going to use the official channels." He looked at her. "How long have you been planning to run away?" "Since I was 6. He laughed. She did not. He stopped laughing. "You are serious." "I am serious." "Aurelia." "Hollis." "Yes. Take me to my mother." He looked at her face. A baby being passed through a door. A woman pressing her forehead to a cold stone floor. Every hand he had ever wanted to hold and not been able to. "Okay," he said. Then he remembered the disc. He put it in her hand. "From Winifred." "Winifred." "The grandmother," he said. "Silver hair. Serves in your wing." Aurelia's fingers closed around the disc. She looked at him. "Winifred gave this to you." "Yes." "Why?" "Because," he said carefully, "there is something I think Winifred should tell you herself. but she wants you to hear the first part from someone you have chosen. Aurelia looked at the disc, then she looked at him. Someone I have chosen. Yes. Hollis Marek. Yes. She held the disc up to the light. The disc, when the light hit it, projected a single small image into the air between them. Two faces, two young women, one with sapphire eyes and a strong jaw, the other with the same jaw, the same brow, but brown eyes and silver in her hair. Two sisters. Aurelia looked at the image for a very long time. Her hand came up. She touched the face with the sapphire eyes. She did not have to touch the other face. She had been touching that other face, on and off, for 22 years, every time a warm cloth had come to her forehead in the dark. Hollis, yes. That woman, yes. Is my aunt, yes. She did not cry. She was too full for crying. She only closed her hand around the disc and pressed her fist to her chest. Then she said, "We take her with us. To the moon. To my mother. Aurelia. Both of them," she said. "In one room, once, before the Empire takes anything else from me." She turned. She started walking. Then she stopped, turned back. "Hollis." "Yes." "Bring the photograph." "What photograph?" "Of your wife." He stared at her. "Why?" Aurelia's sapphire eyes were bright. "Because you should not go on this trip without her." Varen met them at the private airlock on the lower ring. He did not look surprised, which was Hollis thought the most suspicious thing a diplomat had ever done in his presence. Winifred stood next to Varen, her small bag at her feet. She had already been packed. Of course she had already been packed. She had been packed for 22 years. Aurelia stopped in front of her. For a long moment, Aurelia, whose entire life had been ceremony and marble and the correct arrangement of shoulders, just looked at her, at the silver hair, at the folded hands, at the small linen cloth still tucked over the left arm. Then she stepped forward, and she put her arms around Winifred. Not ceremonially, not correctly, just the way a girl puts her arms around the woman who used to brush her hair. Winifred made a sound. It was very small. It was the sound of 22 years of silence finally breaking, very quietly, inside the throat of one small, strong woman. Hollis looked away. He gave them the moment. Varen did too. When Aurelia stepped back, she did not let go of Winifred's hand. She turned to Varen. "Ambassador, my lady, you will not stop us. I will not. You will not tell anyone. I will not. You will pretend you did not see us." A small, dry smile. "My lady, I see a great many things." Then as they passed him, Varen pressed a small chip into Hollis's hand. "What is this?" "Insurance." "For what?" Varen looked at him. For a moment, the diplomat's face slipped. What was underneath was not a diplomat at all. What was underneath was a man who had been waiting a very long time for one specific thing to be possible. "Mr. Marek?" "Yes." "Bring her back." "I will." "Bring them all back." Hollis stared at him, but Varen was already turning, walking away. The patterns on his collarbone catching the low blue light of the docking bay. Hollis looked at the chip. He looked at Aurelia. He looked at Winifred. He looked at the chip again. "He knows," he said. "He has," Aurelia said carefully, "always known more than he says." "How much more?" "That," she said, "I would also like to find out." The trip took 11 hours. 11 hours in a small ship that smelled faintly of cedar and something Hollis did not have a word for. 11 hours of looking out a window at a star field that grew thinner the further they traveled from Helios Prime. 11 hours of sitting in a small cabin with a noble woman who was about to walk into a room she had been walking toward in her dreams for 25 years. And an aunt who had been waiting 22 years to be introduced. Aurelia did not speak much. Hollis did not push. Winifred sat in the third chair, her small bag on her lap, her hands folded on top of it. Watching Aurelia the way you watch a candle, you have been keeping a light in a room with a draft. For a very long time. At some point. 4 hours in. Aurelia put her head on Hollis's shoulder. She did not ask permission. She did not apologize. She just did it. He did not move. He did not move for a very long time. He remembered Eloan's head on his shoulder. How a shoulder is a small piece of geography. How it does not seem like much. How it is, in fact, one of the most important pieces of land any human being ever offers another human being. How he had not given it to anyone in 4 years. How he was giving it now. Eloan, somewhere inside him, said, "Good." Winifred watched this too. Winifred did not smile. Winifred only nodded, very slightly. The way a person nods when a thing they have been praying for has at last walked past them wearing its coat. The moon was small. The moon was green. The moon was the kind of moon that imperial cartographers had probably labeled uninteresting on a chart somewhere and then forgotten about. There was a single settlement on it, 12 stone houses, a windmill, a river, a long low meadow that ran down to a slow gray sea. The ship landed at the edge of the meadow. They walked the rest. Aurelia did not speak. Hollis did not speak. Winifred walked a few steps behind, her bag in her hand. Their footsteps in the long grass were the only sound. The eighth house from the windmill had a row of flowers in the windowsill. The flowers were small, blue, the color of a particular blue Hollis had only ever seen once before, under the temples of the young woman walking beside him. He stopped. She stopped. She looked at the flowers. The glow beneath her skin came on, slowly, like a sunrise that had been told gently that it was allowed. Hollis, yes, I do not know if I can. You can. I do not know what to say. You don't have to know. Hollis, yes. What if she does not? He turned her toward him. Her sapphire eyes were full, properly full now. The tears had finally arrived. They had taken 25 years. They were entitled to take their time. Aurelia, yes. She is going to know. How can you? Because mothers know. Hollis, trust me on this one. She closed her eyes. She breathed, once, twice, 3 times. Then she walked to the door. She did not knock. She did not have to. The door opened. The woman in the doorway was older than the woman in the vision. Of course she was, 25 years older. Her hair was streaked with silver. Her face was the face of a woman who had spent 25 years on a moon at the edge of nowhere, listening to a wind off a gray sea, waiting for one specific sound to come up through that wind. But her bones were the same. She did not say anything. She did not have to. She looked at Aurelia. Aurelia looked at her. For one long moment, there were no words in the universe. Then Lady Isolde, formerly of the imperial court, exiled for 25 years to a flower-windowed house on a green moon at the edge of an empire that had told the wrong story about her, lifted one trembling hand and touched her daughter's cheek. She did not say, "My daughter." She did not say, "My child." She did not say, "I knew you would come." She said one word. She said, "L." And it was a name nobody had used in 25 years. A name a mother had once whispered into the small ear of a baby being passed through a door. A short, secret, only for me name. Aurelia's face broke. It broke in a way that was so quiet it was almost silent. She walked into her mother's arms. The arms remembered her. The arms had been waiting. The arms closed around her the way they had been preparing to close around her every night for 25 years. Hollis turned away. This was not a thing for him to watch. I walked to the edge of the meadow. He took out the photograph of Eloan. He looked at her small, crooked smile. "We got her home," he said. Eloan laughed. Behind him, he heard Isolde. Look up, over her daughter's shoulder. Look at Winifred. He heard a small sound come out of Isolde. He heard Winifred take one shaking step forward. He heard 2 silver-haired women, long separated, long silent, fall into each other in a doorway of a small stone house. He did not turn to see it. He let them have it. That night, around a small fire in the small stone house, Isolde told them the truth. Not all of it. The rest would come. But the first terrible piece. She told it slowly, her hands wrapped around a small wooden cup. She did not look at Aurelia most of the time. She looked at the fire, as if the fire could carry the words she could not quite carry herself. I was not always exiled. I know, Aurelia said softly. I was a member of the High Court before. I know that too. You do not know, said Isolde. The rest. The fire snapped. Isolde looked up. I was 27 years old. I was being courted by every noble house from here to the outer rim. I was the daughter of an old family, old enough that the High Council had begun to ask quietly, when I would choose. She paused. And there was a man in the council, High Counselor Malvain, who asked for my hand, formally, publicly, 27 years ago. Aurelia's fingers around her own cup tightened. I said no. The words were flat. I said no, in front of witnesses. In the small, polite way we said no in those days. I did not know it then, but I had just made an enemy for life. Mother. He never forgot, Isolde said. He never forgot. Hollis felt the room grow cold. A year later, Isolde said, I went to the docking ring one evening to see a ship come in. And there was a man there. He was a cargo handler. He was not noble. He was not even of the upper castes. He had grease on his hands, and a laugh you could hear 3 platforms away. She looked at Aurelia for the first time properly. He had your eyes. Aurelia's hand went slowly to her own face. You have his eyes, Isolde corrected. I should say it that way. What was his name? Alden. The name was small. The name was ordinary. The name was in the high marble courts of the empire, the kind of name nobody ever said out loud. You loved him. I loved him. And when the High Council found out, Malvain found out. Malvain. Aurelia's voice was very quiet. He said he would ruin us. He said he would ruin all of us. He said it very politely, over a cup of blue tea, in a small office, with no witnesses. What did he do? Isolde closed her eyes. He killed him, she said. He called it an accident, a cargo accident. Pressed between 2 containers, it was very thorough. There were witnesses, there was a body, there was a small ceremony for his family. She breathed. And then, they told me I was pregnant. You did not know. I did not know. They had medics who knew before I did. They had a system of watching the unmarried daughters of the high houses. They watched. They tested. They knew. The fire snapped. They said the child was promising, unusually so. The neural patterns were even at that stage anomalous. Isolde looked at her hands. Malvain came to me himself. He told me I could keep the child, on one condition. What condition? That I disappear. That I disappear from the court, from the records, from the universe. They would announce my death. They would say I had died in childbirth. The body would be returned to my family. Empty, closed casket. The child would be raised at court as an orphan of a noble family. She paused. He told me, if I refused, they could make sure the child was, less interesting. Aurelia's hand went over her mouth. I disappeared, said Isolde simply. I chose the moon. I chose the flowers. I chose 25 years of looking at a gray sea, because the alternative was that they would adjust you, until you were not interesting anymore. Winifred in the corner wiped her eyes with the small linen cloth. Aurelia was crying, not loudly, the way Isolde had cried in the vision 25 years ago on a cold stone floor. Quiet. She crossed the room. She put her arms around her mother. Isolde held her for a long time. Then Isolde said into her daughter's hair, You were not made in a laboratory, Elle. You were made on a docking ring, between a noble woman and a man with grease on his hands. You were made of love. Whatever they have told you, you were made of love. Aurelia did not speak. She did not need to. But Isolde was not done. She looked at Hollis. There is one more thing. He looked up. You should know it, before the sun rises. Tell me. Isolde took a breath. There were 2. Aurelia went still against her mother's chest. 2. 2 babies. Hollis stopped breathing. Twins, Isolde said. The physicians did not tell me until the last month. They said it very carefully, as if it were a small technicality. Mother. Your sister, Isolde said, was very small. very fragile. They said she was. She could not say it. She tried. They said she was not going to live very long. Aurelia lifted her head. Mother, I held her for 2 hours, Isolde said. 2 hours, on the coldest floor, in the coldest room of the coldest infirmary in the empire. And then she stopped breathing. And I handed you through the door, and I went where they told me to go. The fire snapped. Nobody spoke for a very long time. Then Aurelia, her voice smaller than Hollis had ever heard it, said, her name, Naira. Aurelia's hand rose to her chest. I have always, yes, felt, yes, half, yes, my love. I thought I was just. You were not just anything, Isolde said. You were two, and now you are one, and you carry her. And that is not a wound. That is a companion. Aurelia buried her face in her mother's neck. She cried then, properly. Loud, ugly 25 years of held-back crying. Isolde held her. Winifred wept quietly in the corner. Hollis sat with his hand over Elowen's photograph in his pocket. He did not intrude on the grief. He only witnessed it, because he had learned, a long time ago, in a hospital room in Portland, that witnessing another person's grief is sometimes the only thing you can do that matters. Isolde looked up, over Aurelia's shoulder, at Hollis. There is more, she said quietly. You will not want to hear it, but you have to. Hollis nodded. The neural pattern, Isolde said, that she has, that they call her gift. Yes, it is not natural. Aurelia lifted her head slowly. What? They did something, Isolde said, in those last months, before you were born, something they called stabilization. They said it was medical. It was not medical. It was augmentation. Augmentation. You are not the only one, Isolde said. There were 22 others, over the same years, different mothers, different circumstances. All of them told their child had died. All of them told to disappear. All of them alone. And all of the children kept. The fire snapped. Aurelia's face went white. 22. 22. Where? Scattered, adopted, grown. Some in imperial families, some not. Some who knew each other, most who did not. And all of them, Isolde said, carrying the same thing you carry. Aurelia's hand rose to her temple. She pressed there gently as if testing for something she had never before been allowed to name. I am not alone. You have never been alone, Isolde said. They only made you feel that way. Hollis, from where he sat, watched this land in Aurelia. He watched her jaw set. He watched her sapphire eyes darken, not with grief, with something else, something colder, something older than her 25 years, something that reminded him sharply and suddenly of a woman on a marble dais asking a question for the 17th time. Only now. Now she was going to ask a different question. He did not have to hear the question yet, but he felt it, through the thread that ran from his chest to hers. Where are they? And who took them from their mothers? The fire snapped. Nobody spoke. Then Aurelia, very calmly, very quietly, said, Mother. Yes, I would like the names. Isolde looked at her. She looked at her for a long time. Then Isolde said, I have them. All 22. All 22. I have been keeping them in a small box under a floorboard for 25 years. Why? Because someone, someday, was going to come to this door and ask. She rose. She lifted a corner of a woven rug near the fireplace. She pried up a floorboard. She lifted out a small wooden box. She set it on the table. Aurelia stared at it. Hollis stared at it. Winifred stared at it. 22 names, 22 mothers who had been told the same lie. 22 children who had been raised inside it. The box sat in the firelight. Small, wooden, ordinary. Enough truth inside it to bring an empire to its knees. Aurelia lifted the lid. The list was there, in careful handwriting. Names in a language he did not read, but numbers, dates, ages. She looked up. Her sapphire eyes were bright. Her platinum hair caught the firelight. She looked in that moment exactly like the paintings in the marble court. Beautiful, ethereal, untouchable. Except now she was smiling. A small, sharp, dangerous smile. Hollis, she said. Yes. You said someone opened the door for Corathan. Yes. You said someone high inside. Yes. She closed her fingers around the list. I think I know who. She was about to say his name. Except, except, except at that exact moment. The data pad in Hollis's pocket chimed. It was the small chip Varen had given him. It had unlocked itself. A message was on the screen. 3 words. They are coming. Hollis stared. Then he looked up at the sky. Through the small window of the small stone house he saw, at the high edge of the atmosphere, a single bright pinpoint appear. Then another. Then a third. He counted to 7 before he stopped counting. He turned. His face must have said it. Because all 3 women stopped moving. Because Winifred put her hand over her mouth. Because Isolde rose to her feet. Because Aurelia, her fingers still around the list, went very still. Aurelia. How long? Minutes. She nodded. Once. Quickly. She turned to her mother. Mother, I am coming back. Elle. I am coming back for you. Elle. Take Winifred. Elle, no. Mother, Aurelia said. Take Winifred. Take the box. Go into the hills. There is a shelter I have seen in your mind. Go there. Do not come out. For anyone. Elle. Do not. Mother. Aurelia crossed to her. She put her hands on either side of Isolde's face. I have just met you, she said. I am not going to lose you tonight. Isolde's tears fell. She looked at Aurelia. She looked at Winifred. She looked at Hollis. Then she nodded. Once. Quickly. Isolde walked to the small carved chest by the door. She opened it. She took out a single object. A small pendant. Old. Worn. The kind of thing that had been carried in a pocket for 25 years. She put it in Aurelia's hand. This was his, she said. I want you to have it. Aurelia closed her fingers around it. She could not speak. She did not need to. Winifred picked up the wooden box. Winifred and Isolde, sister and sister, long separated, long silent, long together now, slipped out the back door of the small stone house and into the hills. Hollis and Aurelia turned and ran. They ran across the meadow. They ran with the long grass slapping their legs. They ran with the slow gray sea on their right and the small green hills on their left, and the 7 knot stars above them growing very quickly, into 7 knot stars at all. They made the ship. They lifted off. The atmosphere screamed past the viewport. Aurelia was at the controls. Her hands were faster than Hollis's hands had ever been at anything. Hollis was in the second seat. He was holding on. Aurelia, yeah. Yes, those are Imperial ships. I see. Those are not just any Imperial ships. I see. Aurelia, those are. I see, Hollis. Council ships. I see. They cleared the atmosphere. The 7 knot stars resolved themselves into 7 sleek mirror-finished cutters with the white sigil of the High Council on their flanks. A voice came over the comm. The voice was thin and dry and old. It was a voice Hollis had never heard before, but which Aurelia recognized in the small involuntary tightening of her jaw. Lady Aurelia Nix. High Counselor, you are out of bounds. I am visiting family. High Counselor. A pause. A small dry pause. You have no family. Lady Aurelia. She did not answer. The voice continued. You will return to Helios Prime. You will be accompanied. The human will be detained pending review. You will report for stabilization. Hollis looked at her. Stabilization. She did not look at him. It is a procedure, she said quietly. What does it do? It clears recent neural acquisitions. What? It is a reset. Hollis. He stared at her. They are going to erase you. They are going to erase what I have learned, what I have remembered, what you have, she paused, what I have felt. They cannot do that. They can. Aurelia. They have done it before, to others. They have hinted more than once that they could do it to me. Her hand tightened on the controls. Her glow had darkened to a deep, deep blue. Hollis, yes, they will not let us escape. I know. They will pull us in. I know. They will detain you. Yes. They may hurt you. They may. And they will reset me. She said it flatly, like a person reading a weather forecast. He reached over. He put his hand on hers. Aurelia. Yes. Listen to me. Yes. Whatever they do to you in that chair. Yes. I will find you again. She looked at him. For the first time since they had left the moon, the glow under her skin softened, just slightly. You do not know that, she said. Yes, I do. How? Because we have done this dance once already. She almost smiled. Almost. The council cutters closed in around the small ship. Tractor field engaged. The small ship stopped resisting. There was no point. A voice in the comm said, "Submit to docking." Aurelia closed her eyes. Her hand tightened briefly on Hollis's. Then she released the controls. The small ship turned. It began the slow, escorted, journey back to Helios Prime, in the seat beside her. Hollis did not let go of her hand. He did not let go of it, for the entire long quiet ride, for the boarding. For the moment, two armored guards walked through the airlock and pried his hand off of hers. For the moment, he was led away in one direction down a cold white corridor, and she was led away in another. He looked back over his shoulder. She looked back over hers. Their eyes met across the white corridor. She mouthed something. He could not hear it, but he saw it. It was a small word. It was "find me." He nodded. Then the doors closed. In a small gray room, in the deep ring of the High Council, Malvain sat at a polished black desk. He was looking at a screen. The screen showed two figures being led down two corridors. He watched until both figures were out of frame. Then he reached forward. He pressed a small button. He said very quietly, "Prepare the chair." A voice answered, "My lord, the full reset." Malvain paused. He considered. I thought about a young woman with platinum hair, who had laughed on a balcony for the first time in years. He thought about a human who had said the wrong sentence in the right room. He thought about 25 years of very careful work that was suddenly in danger of being undone by one quiet evening, of two hands, and one balcony, and one trip to one moon. He smiled. The smile was small. The full reset, he said. My lord, everything since the bond. Erase him from her. A pause. Erase her from herself. The voice on the other end did not answer. It did not have to. The line went silent, somewhere in the deep ring of the High Council. Doors began to open. Somewhere in a cold white cell, Hollis Marek sat on a thin bed and stared at the wall. Somewhere in a chamber with a chair and a great many soft humming lights, two attendants began to prepare the seat where Lady Aurelia would in just under an hour be made to forget she had ever held a human's hand. Far away on a small green moon, two older women stood at the mouth of a hillside shelter, their arms around each other, watching the sky. They did not weep, they did not pray. They did the thing they had taught themselves, long ago, to do instead of weeping. Isolde reached very gently, along the small invisible thread that nobody had ever known was there. Winifred reached along a different thread, the one she had built with her own hands. 22 years of brushing hair in warm cloths and silent lullabies, and in the cold white cell, Hollis Marek felt, faintly, a touch on his shoulder. Not a hand, not exactly. Something quieter. Two voices he had never heard together said, in the back of his mind, hold on, help is coming. Hold on, my daughter's hand. Hold on, my sister's child. He sat very still on the thin bed. He smiled in the dark, because that, he thought, was a very strange way to be addressed. But it was. He also thought, the best title he had ever been given. Part 3, the cell was white. Not the white of paper, not the white of cloud. The white of a room designed by people who wanted you to forget there were other colors. Hollis sat on the thin bed. He counted the tiles on the ceiling. 48. He counted them again. Still 48. The tiles were not going to be helpful. He stopped counting. He took the photograph of Elowen out of his inside pocket, the one the guards had not found, because the guards had not been particularly interested in a paper rectangle in a man who already had no boots, and no pin, and no data pad, and no chip. He looked at her. She was still laughing. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I am open to ideas." Elowen did not say anything. She was, after all, 4 years gone. But somewhere behind his ribs, there was the small humming thread that ran from him to Aurelia. He could feel it like a tightened wire. It was thinner than it had been. They had her in something that was pressing on her. He could feel the pressure on his own bones. He breathed. He thought, "Aurelia, hold on." The wire pulled, faintly. He thought he heard, very far away, the small ghost of her voice answering. "Hurry!" He stood up. He looked at the door. He looked at his hands. He thought about who he was. He had been a neural researcher. He had been a husband. He had been a man who held a hand in a hospital room while every other hand stepped back. He was not, he had to admit, somebody who broke out of high-security imperial cells for a living. But the door, he noticed, had a panel, and the panel, he noticed, was the standard interface used across the diplomatic ring, and the diplomatic ring's standard interface, he also noticed, had not been updated since the protocols he had once in another lifetime used to bypass, for entirely innocent reasons of staying late at the lab. He smiled. It was a small smile. It was an Alolan would have rolled her eyes smile. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I have one idea." He had 2 minutes with the panel before the door opened on its own. It did not open because he had succeeded. It did not open because the guards had come for him. It opened because Ambassador Varen was standing on the other side. Behind him stood 2 figures. One was a tall, thin man in plain robes, no rank pin, eyes the color of old iron. The other was smaller, silver in her hair, an old wooden pendant clutched in her fist. And behind them, a third figure, Winifred. His breath caught. "You," he said. "Mr. Marek," said Varen. "Ambassador. Are you finished with the panel?" "I had a plan." "I am sure you did. It was a good plan. I am sure of that also. It was going to take about another 17 minutes. We do not have 17 minutes. That is the impression I am getting." Varen stepped back. "Walk with me." They walked, quickly. The corridor was the same cold white corridor he had been led down in handcuffs. It was now somehow much less cold, possibly because nobody was holding his wrists. He looked at Winifred. "How did you—" "There are people," she said softly, "who remember me." He looked at Isolde. "How did you—" "There are people," she said, "who never forgot me." He looked at the man with iron eyes. "And you?" The man did not speak. The man only nodded. Once. Varen spoke as they moved. "Listen to me. We have 10 minutes, possibly 12. They have started the procedure." Hollis stumbled, turned, started. Preparatory phase. They have not engaged the core. Once they engage the core, they cannot stop. The procedure runs to completion. How long until the core? 10 minutes, possibly 12, possibly less. That is not better. It is not better. They turned a corner. 2 guards stood at the end of the corridor. The man with iron eyes did something with his hands. The 2 guards were no longer standing. It happened so fast, Hollis was not sure he had seen it. "Who is he?" Hollis whispered. "An old friend," said Varen. "Of yours." "Of hers," he said, nodding at Isolde. Hollis looked at the older woman. She did not turn. She walked over the unconscious guards as if they were a doorstep. "My lady." "Yes." "What did you do for a living?" "Before the moon." A small, dry smile crossed her face for the first time. Mr. Marek. Yes. Almost everything is going to surprise you tonight. The procedure chamber was 3 levels down. The closer they got, the more the thread in Hollis's chest hummed, not with sound, with pressure. He could feel her in there. He could feel her trying to keep herself together against something pressing her into a shape that was not hers. He could feel her very faintly, talking to him. Slow. They are slowing me. Hurry, Hollis. He hurried. They reached a long, sealed corridor. At the end of it stood a single set of doors. The doors were heavy. The doors were old. The doors had the white sigil of the High Council carved into them. Very small. On the upper left corner. The kind of small that says, "We do not need to be loud." Varen stopped. "Beyond this door," he said, "is the chamber." "Okay." "In the chamber is the chair." "Okay." "In the chair is Lady Aurelia." "Okay." "And standing beside the chair is High Counselor Malvain." A pause. Hollis stared at the door. "He is in there. He is in there personally. Personally. I wants to watch. He wants to watch." Hollis felt something cold move along his arms. The man with iron eyes turned to him. For the first time, the man spoke. His voice was low, rough. The voice of a man who had not used his voice much in many years. "Listen. Yes. When the door opens. Yes. You do not look at me. You do not look at Varen. You do not look at Isolde. You do not look at Winifred. Okay. You look at her. Okay. You walk to her. You do not run. You do not shout. You do not do anything dramatic. Okay. You put your hand on her hand. Okay. And whatever happens next, yes, you do not let go." Hollis looked at him. He nodded. He understood. He understood it in a way he had understood very few things in his life. He had let go of a hand once. He was not going to let go of one again. The doors opened. The chamber was huge, higher ceilings than the cell. Soft, warm light designed to comfort, designed to lie. A great curved wall of screens showing patterns of brain activity in beautiful flowing colors. In the center of the chamber was the chair. The chair was the chair he had imagined. And worse, it was high-backed, wrapped in a delicate web of pale silver filaments. It looked at first like the throne of something benevolent. It was not. Aurelia was in the chair. Her wrists were not restrained. That was the worst part. The procedure did not require restraints. It required acceptance. It required at some level the surrender of the mind being remade. She was not surrendering. You could see it in her jaw, in the small tremor of her chin, in the careful, careful arrangement of her shoulders that said, "I am perfectly fine," in that loud, lying way that only people who are not perfectly fine ever say it. Her platinum hair had come loose from its careful arrangement. It fell around her shoulders in soft waves. The lights beneath her temples were fighting, flickering, defiant. A circle of attendants stood around her, and behind her, half in shadow, half in light, stood a thin man in a dark gray robe, with no rank pin, Malvain. He turned when the doors opened. He was not surprised. That was almost the most frightening thing about him. The man with iron eyes had not yet been seen. He moved along the left edge of the chamber as Hollis walked like a shadow that had not yet decided to become a body. Varen stayed at the door. Winifred stepped forward one small, careful step. Isolde stepped forward beside her. Malvain looked at all of them in turn. When his eyes reached Isolde, they paused. The smallest twitch crawled across his face. "Lady Isolde. Yes, you are not officially alive. No. And yet. And yet." He turned to Winifred. Another twitch. "Sister." Winifred lifted her chin. "Yes. I always suspected you. I know. I let you stay. I know. Why? Because you needed someone in that house to remind you every day that we had not forgotten." His mouth thinned. He turned to Hollis. "Mr. Marek, High Counselor, you are in violation of approximately 14 statutes. Approximately. You are also wasting your time." "Am I?" The procedure is in its final preparatory phase. In 90 seconds, the core engages. Once the core engages, your bond will be severed. Hollis kept walking. Your Lady Aurelia, Malvain went on, will not remember the balcony. She will not remember the moon. She will not remember the laugh. He smiled. She will not, he added, remember you. The thread in Hollis's chest pulled sharply. He looked at Aurelia in the chair. Her head was bowed, but she lifted it. She lifted it just enough to look at him. Her sapphire eyes met his across the long, warm, bright chamber. She was crying, quietly, the way she had cried on the moon, the way her mother had cried 25 years ago on a cold stone floor. She did not say anything. She did not have to. He walked toward her. He did not run. He walked. Malvain watched him. Mr. Marek, stop walking. Hollis did not stop walking. Mr. Marek. He kept walking. Guards. Two attendants stepped forward. The man with iron eyes was already there. The two attendants were no longer standing. It happened again, almost too fast to see. Malvain's smile faded. It faded in the slow, slow way of a man who had not had a smile fade in a very long time. He looked at the man with iron eyes. He squinted. His face changed. Alden. The word fell in the chamber like a stone in a deep well. Hollis stopped walking. He turned. Isolde was already looking at the man with iron eyes. Her hand had gone to her mouth. The man with iron eyes did not look at her. He looked at Malvain. You said he was dead, Isolde whispered. The man finally turned. He looked at her. His face did the thing faces do when they have been holding a particular expression for 25 years and are not entirely sure how to let go of it. My lady, Alden, they told me. I know what they told you. They told me they killed you. They tried. She did not move for a moment. Then she did. She crossed the chamber. She walked without ceremony into the arms of a man who had had grease on his hands 25 years ago, and now had iron in his eyes, and a calm, steady walk, and the same exact way of standing he had had standing on a docking ring at 28. Hollis stared. Aurelia, in the chair, stared. Her lips parted. Her glow, which had been fading, suddenly came back, not gently, in a great soft surge, because the small wooden pendant that had hung around her neck since her mother had pressed it into her hand on a green moon, the pendant that had been his, the pendant she had not understood, the pendant began very softly to warm against her chest, because the man with iron eyes was not a body she had ever seen, but he was a thread she had carried inside her, unknowing, since before she had been born. Her father, her father, her father was alive. Malvain took a step back. For the first time, the smallest crack appeared in his composure. Alden Voss, he said, you should have stayed dead. I should have, said the man with iron eyes. I made you very generous arrangements. You did. You agreed to them. I did not. I have witnesses. Your witnesses were paid. I have a body. Your body was a stranger, off a freighter, 25 years old. Malvain opened his mouth. He closed it. He did the thing only the very powerful do when they are caught in something. He recalculated. He turned toward the chair. Engage the core. An attendant by the chair flinched. The attendant looked at Aurelia. The attendant looked at the chamber full of people who were not supposed to be here. The attendant did not move. Engage the core. Malvain said it again, quietly, with the particular quiet of a man whose quiet was worse than his shouting. Sir, engage it. Sir, the bonded partner is in the room. I am aware. Sir, protocol requires. Protocol, Malvain hissed, is for people without an empire to lose. He stepped forward himself. He put his own thin hand on the control panel. He smiled, the small, dry smile. He pressed it. Aurelia cried out. The sound was not loud, but it filled the entire chamber. The thread in Hollis's chest seized. He stumbled. He caught himself. He kept walking. 3 more steps. 2. 1. He reached the chair. He did not look at Malvain. He did not look at Alden. He did not look at Isolde. He did not look at Winifred. He did exactly what the man with iron eyes had told him to do. He looked at her. He put his hand on her hand. The filaments around the chair were humming. The chair was pulling at her. The procedure was reaching for the core. It was at this second beginning to engage, beginning to slide its silver fingers between the recent memories of one Lady Aurelia and the rest of her, beginning to take the balcony, beginning to take the laugh, beginning to take him. He felt it as a great cold drawing. He felt it the way he had felt the empty room in the hospital that morning 4 years ago, when the hand had still been there, but Elowen had not. He did not let go. He closed his fingers around hers. He bent his head close to her ear. He whispered the one thing he had figured out, the one thing he had been turning over and over in the small white cell, the one thing nobody in any chamber, in any court, of any empire, had ever quite understood. Aurelia, Hollis, listen. Yes, the bond does not hurt people. What? Listen. Yes, the bond does not hurt people. The bond does not break minds. The bond does not kill. Hollis, what? Yes. What kills? What kills is forcing it. She froze. The drawing slowed. He kept whispering. Fast. Quiet. The way you whisper to someone in a hospital bed at 3 in the morning, when the night is very long, and there is only one true sentence left in the world, and you have to give it to them right now. The bond does not poison Aurelia. It is just a door. It is just a door between two minds, and doors do not kill people. Doors only kill people if you slam them, if you pry them, if you stand on the other side and try to push, if you try to push a mind through, if you take and you do not give. Hollis, that is what they did to the others. Yes, Hollis, that is why the others died. He felt her in the bond, listening. He felt her really, really listening. He whispered, they told you the bond would destroy whoever you opened to, so no one would open to you, so you would always be alone, so you would always be theirs. Hollis, they told you a lie, Aurelia. They told you a lie for 25 years. The drawing was slowing. Behind him, Malvain was pressing the panel again and again. Engage, he was saying. Engage. The attendant had stepped back. The other attendants had stepped back. The pale silver filaments were flickering. Aurelia opened her eyes. She looked at him. Sapphire, wide, wet. Hollis. Yes, the bond is a door. A door. Yes, only a door. Yes. And we are on either side of it. And nobody is pushing. She breathed. He breathed. For 1 second. For one very specific second. The bond did the thing it was always supposed to do. Both of them freely at the same time walked toward the door and met in the middle. The light, when it came, was not light. It was warmth. It was a great slow golden warmth that rose along his arm, along her arm, up his shoulder, up hers. It met in the middle of his chest. It met in the middle of hers. It did not roar this time. It hummed. The filaments above the chair flickered and dimmed and went out. The screens on the wall, which had been showing red, flowed back into soft blue. The chair released her. It just let go, as if the chair had remembered suddenly that its job was supposed to be to help. Aurelia stood up. She did not stagger. She did not collapse. She stood up like a young woman who had spent 25 years carrying a stone and had just put it down. Her platinum hair fell around her shoulders. Her sapphire eyes were bright. Her skin in the soft, warm light looked like starlight given a shape. She was in that moment, the most beautiful thing in the room. But Malvain could not see it, because he was still staring at the panel. He took a step back. His hand was still on the panel. The panel was no longer responding. He looked at his own hand. He looked at the chair. He looked at her. No, he said. It was a small word. It was the smallest word he had said all night. It was the word of a man whose lie had just been told the truth about itself. Aurelia turned to him. She did not raise her voice. She did not have to. The lines beneath her temples lit up, bright and warm, like soft veins of starlight. Behind her eyes, the entire Imperial fleet in distant orbit around Helios Prime hummed at the same patient frequency, not threatening, just present. High Counselor Malvain. Yes. For 25 years. Yes. You told this empire I was dangerous. He did not answer. She stepped toward him. You told this empire that anyone who bonded with me would die. He did not answer. She stepped again. You told my mother she had to disappear to save my mind. He did not answer. You told my father he had died in a cargo bay. He did not answer. You told my aunt to keep her silence for 22 years and pretend to be a stranger in her own niece's home. Winifred at the edge of the chamber put her hand over her mouth. You told the 17 suitors I was a weapon. She paused. Her glow brightened. Why? She was now standing a foot from him. She was a head taller than he was. Hollis had not realized that before. It is hard to notice a person's height when the person is sitting in a chair, being erased. Malvain looked up at her. His smile was gone. The thin, dry mouth was a thin, dry mouth. Because a bonded queen is a queen who has someone to lose. A pause. A queen who has someone to lose is a queen who can be controlled. And an unbonded queen is alone. And an alone queen is mine. The silence that followed was not a polite silence. It was the silence of a chamber full of people who had just heard a man say out loud the thing nobody had ever quite said out loud before. But he was not finished. His eyes drifted, just once, to Isolde. And there it was, the thing he had never quite hidden, the thing that had been rotting at the back of him for 27 years. And also, he said very softly, because your mother said no. Isolde's breath caught. 27 years ago, in a small, polite chamber, over a cup of blue tea, she said no. She said no as if the word were nothing, as if the word cost nothing, as if I were nothing. His voice cracked, just barely. Then he steadied it. I decided that day that she would spend the rest of her life learning what nothing cost. Isolde's hand went to her chest. Alden stepped one step forward. The man with iron eyes did not need to speak. His shoulders spoke. Malvain saw them. Malvain did not stop talking. I killed a cargo handler, he said. I exiled a woman I had once put a ring in a small silver box for. I built a program on the corpses of 22 adjusted infants. I told a beautiful young woman for 25 years that she was a weapon. His eyes flicked to Aurelia. And it was all, he said, so that the word no could finally have a price. For a moment, just a moment, nobody moved, because a truth had just landed in the middle of a marble floor. And truths, when they land, need a second. Aurelia looked at him. She looked at him for a long time. She did not spit at him. She did not slap him. She did not weep. She only said quietly, almost gently, you spent 27 years. Yes. Turning a small no. Yes. Into a small empire. Yes. And you thought, yes, that when you were finally done, yes, you would feel large. He did not answer. She stepped back. She turned her head, just slightly. She looked at the small bank of broadcast panels at the edge of the chamber, which were, of course, also recording. She looked into the lens of the broadcast eye, and she said quietly, clearly, in the voice of a young woman who had finally been allowed to speak in her own name. My people. The lens recorded. The signal began to travel. My name is Aurelia. I am the daughter of Lady Isolde, of House Karen, who did not die, and of Alden Voss, who was not crushed in a cargo accident. They are both standing in this room. They have been kept from me, and from each other, for 25 years. She did not look away from the lens. The man behind me, High Counselor Malvain, has just admitted, in this chamber, before witnesses, before a recording panel, that he engineered my isolation, that he murdered my father, or believed he had, that he exiled my mother, that he raised me to believe I was a weapon, so that he could keep me unbonded, so that he could keep me his. She paused. I am not his. She paused again. I am not a weapon. She looked at Hollis. I am bonded to a man who held my hand on a balcony when no one else would. The bond did not kill him. It did not kill me. It will not kill any of us. It never would have. She turned back to the lens. Everything we were told was a lie. She paused. This recording will reach every world in the Empire within an hour. Every house, every council, every village, on every moon, the records of the Imperial Medical Archive, the records of the Office of Cultural Affairs, the records of the Council itself, all of them, in this same hour, will be made public. She paused. By me. Her glow brightened, just for a moment, just enough. You taught me to interface with Fleet's High Counselor. You did not consider that fleets are full of communications arrays. For a moment, Malvain did not move. Then he did. His thin hand went into his sleeve. It came out with something small, bright, the size of a coin. Alden moved, but Alden was on the other side of the room. Hollis was closer. Hollis was not professionally a man who did this kind of thing, but Hollis had grown up in Portland. And one of the things you learn in Portland, even as a quiet diplomat's son with neural research aspirations, is what it looks like when a man reaches into his sleeve for something the size of a coin. Hollis stepped in front of Aurelia. The small bright thing hummed in Malvain's hand. It did not get any further. Alden reached him before he could lift it. There was a small quiet sound. There was a sigh. There was the soft drop of a thin gray body to the polished floor, unconscious. The small bright coin rolled. It rolled until it stopped against the toe of Isolde's slipper. She bent. She picked it up. She looked at it without expression. Then she looked at the body on the floor. She did not weep. She did not gloat. She closed her hand around the coin. She put it in her pocket. She said simply, "Done." The next 24 hours were the loudest 24 hours in the recent history of the Empire. The broadcast went where Aurelia had said it would go. Every world, every house, every council, every village on every moon. The Imperial Medical Archive had been waiting in its quiet way for somebody to ask the right questions. The records came out in long, patient streams, old falsified files, 22 sealed names, a clinic on the edge of the frontier, a list of children, a list of mothers, a list of lies. Other mothers came forward. They had been told their children had died. They had been told their children had been adopted. They had been told different versions of the same lie, tailored for different lives, signed by different ghost physicians. Some of those children were found, not all of them. Some had not survived. Some had. A young man named Kaiso was found in a small house on an even smaller moon. He had been raised by a family who had loved him very much and had not known he was anything but theirs. When the news came, his family did not turn him out. They held him through the news. The way families do. A woman named Sylvain was found, running a small shop on a station 3 sectors away. She had her own children. She had a husband. She had a life. She did not at first want to be reminded of where she had come from. The Empire let her have her quiet. That too was a kind of return. The High Council, with one of its most powerful figures now in custody and unable to speak in his own defense, came apart at the seams, not all at once. In the slow way old structures come apart when the bolts are all the same age. And the bolts have all been waiting. 3 counselors resigned, 2 were arrested, 1 simply disappeared, and was by general agreement allowed to disappear. A small new council was named. It included for the first time in the history of the Empire a non-noble. It included Alden Voss. He took the post under one condition. The condition was that his wife was permitted to sit in the front row of every public session. The condition was granted. The wife in the front row looked exactly like the wife on the docking ring 25 years ago. The night a noblewoman had said hello to a man with grease on his hands. She had silver in her hair. She still had blue flowers in her windowsill. She had brought them from the moon. She was no more exiled. She was at last home, and in the front row beside her, sitting also, for the first time in her 22 years of service, was another silver-haired woman, Winifred. Not a servant anymore, not a stranger anymore, her sister. Every time Isolde spoke, Winifred nodded. Every time Winifred bowed her head, Isolde reached over and held her hand. The two of them together in the front row of the new council made the older nobles cry, and they were not generally nobles who cried. Of Lady Aurelia much was said. The phrase "the bonded queen" began to appear, almost shyly, in the small village broadsheets of the outer worlds. She did not exactly accept the phrase. She did not exactly refuse it. When asked, she said only that she was a young woman who had been told a lie and who had told the truth back. She gave most of her time that first year to the children, the 22, the ones who could be found. She brought them gently one by one when they wished to be brought, into a small house, on a small moon, where two older people had decided to live a small life. She let them meet her father. She let them meet her mother. She let them meet Winifred. She let them sit by the fire and eat the kind of food that does not exist in marble halls. She did not for any of them push. She had learned by now what pushing did, what pushing had always done. Hollis Marek stayed. Of course he stayed. The Earth Alliance, after some initial consternation about one of its junior logistics officers becoming by accident the bonded partner of an imperial heir, recovered itself and discovered a sudden and previously unsuspected interest in long-term diplomatic posts on Helios Prime. He was promoted. He did not care about the promotion. He cared about the small carved chest in the small stone house on the small green moon, where he had placed one quiet afternoon a paper photograph of a woman with a small crooked smile and brown hair tucked behind one ear. He had placed it there himself. Aurelia had watched him. She had not spoken. When he had set the photograph down, he had stayed kneeling for a long moment. He had said very quietly, "Eloan." The photograph had been still. "This is Aurelia." The photograph had been still. "You would have liked her." The photograph had laughed. He had known it had laughed. The way you know both things. Both things. When you have loved someone for that long, and then lost them, and then carried them. He had stood up. He had turned around. Aurelia had been crying quietly in the doorway. She had stepped forward. She had put her arms around him. She had said into the back of his neck, "Thank you for letting me meet her." He had said, "Thank you for letting me come back." The night of the first anniversary of the broadcast, they stood on the balcony. The same balcony. The diplomatic ring of Helios Prime had not changed. The view of the stars had not changed. The warships of the Empire were still out there, drifting in their slow geometry. But they no longer drifted alone. There were Corinthian ships among them now. The two houses had reached after long negotiations a treaty. Aurelia had brokered it. The terms had been simple. "We will not be enemies, because somebody else lied about us." It had worked. It usually does. She stood at the railing. He stood beside her. She was wearing a simple white dress. Her platinum hair fell around her shoulders, loose, the way she never used to wear it in the court. She looked exactly like a young woman, 26 years old, beautiful, rested, alive. She was wearing a small wooden pendant on a long chain. I was wearing a small steel pin in the shape of the Earth Alliance crest, and also, on a thin chain under his shirt, a second pendant, smaller, older, a Lowen's wedding band, which he had stopped trying to wear on his finger about 3 months in. It hung now, over his heart. He had not asked Aurelia if that was all right. He had not needed to. She had simply one morning helped him with the chain. The starlight was the same starlight. The dome was the same dome. She looked at him. He looked at her. She said, "Are you afraid?" He said, "Of what?" "Of any of this." He thought about it. A cell, a chair, a thin man in a gray robe. All the small violences that the people in marble halls had done to a young woman who had only ever wanted, like every other young woman, to be loved without conditions. How in the end fear had not been the enemy. Fear had only been the weapon. The enemy had been the people who used it. He looked at her. He said, "I used to be. And now, yes, I know what fear is." "What is it?" "It is what kills love." "Yes." "It is what tells you not to hold the hand." "Yes." "It is what tells you when somebody asks if you could die for them to lower your head." She nodded once. She looked out at the stars. And now, he took her hand. And now, he said, I am not afraid. She squeezed. She did not look at him, but the small lines beneath her temples lit up, soft and warm. And the small thread between his chest and hers hummed. In the warm, patient hum of a thing that had been allowed at long last to simply be. She said, Hollis. Yes. Do you regret it? Regret what? Any of it. He remembered the balcony, the moon, the cell, the chair, Eloan, a paper photograph in a small carved chest, and the way it laughed. He looked at her. He said, I only regret one thing. What? That I did not meet you sooner. A small, soft laugh. The same small, soft laugh. The one she had given him on this same balcony a year ago, when he had been a strange diplomat with sore feet in a sentence he could not stop himself from saying. Then, slowly, she turned, fully, toward him. She raised her hand. She placed it on his chest, right over the small chain where Eloan's ring hung. She left it there, for a long moment. Hollis. Yes. She taught you how. Yes. To hold a hand. Yes. Aurelia's eyes were wet. She smiled. Then thank her for me. He closed his own hand over hers. He held both of them there, together, over Eloan's ring. He said very quietly into the starlight, Eloan. The stars kept doing their indifferent thing. She is Aurelia, and she is beautiful, and she is here. And in some quiet, deep, still locked room in the back of his heart. A photograph laughed. Aurelia leaned her head on his shoulder. His shoulder accepted it the way shoulders do when they have finally been given back their job. Below them, the docking ring went about its slow business. Above them, the stars went about theirs. Between them, the thread hummed. Far away on a small green moon at the edge of the frontier, 3 older people were sitting outside a small stone house. Isolde, in a chair by the door. Alden, beside her, their hands folded together on the arm of her chair, as if to make up for 25 years of not being folded together. Winifred, on the low stone bench beside them, a basket of blue seedlings at her feet. She was planting. She always planted in the evenings now. Blue flowers, more and more of them. Every week the row of blue flowers in the windowsill got a little longer, and a little longer, and a little longer. Because Winifred had all her life been the one who kept small living things alive. In the corners of rooms nobody was watching. Now she was allowed to do it. In the front row. Alden looked up at the sky. He did not know exactly which small point of light was Helios Prime, but he could feel the way he had learned 25 years ago in a docking bay. When a woman with sapphire eyes had said hello, he could feel where his daughter was. Isolde felt it too. Winifred felt it too. 3 older people, on a green moon, under a big sky, feeling their child, feeling their niece, feeling their sister's daughter, held, safe, loved. Isolde reached over, very quietly. She took Alden's hand. Alden reached over with his other hand and took Winifred's. Winifred reached her free hand back and touched the blue flowers. 3 hands in one small living row of blue, making a circle around a small stone house, around a small green moon, around a young woman in a white dress, 26 years old, platinum hair like moonlight, sapphire eyes, standing on a balcony far away, with a human man beside her, both of them alive, both of them held, both of them at last, no longer alone. The stars kept doing their indifferent thing, but under them, for the first time in 25 years, the thread hummed, 2 hearts on the balcony, 3 hands on the moon, 1 family, at last, home.